Welcome back. So, I got a disclaimer. Before I say what I'm about to say, I'm not trying to condemn nor condone what anybody does in their free time. It's just an observation I had after I don't even know how to explain it. But anyway, so I don't drink often. I'm not really a big let me go pick up a drink to solve my problems type of person. To solve my problems, alcohol isn't the first thought process for me. Like, there's some people that go through things and their vice is alcohol. And there's other people that go through things and their vices are other things. But for the thought process that I'm going through right now, I'm going to use alcohol as the example. So I found myself realizing that I can drink. It sounds crazy because who just sit back and be like, I could drink. But the thing is I don't drink often. So when I do, it's just like, I can do this. It sounds crazy coming out, saying it out loud, but it's the truth. As a person that is older than 21 years old, legally I can drink. So when I think about drinking, it's always I personally don't feel convicted because like I said before, I don't drink to run away from problems. So when I do drink, I have to remind myself that it's not a matter of, oh, you're a Christian, you shouldn't be drinking. It's a matter of, do I feel convicted in drinking? And anytime I do choose to drink, it's not I'm running away from a problem, therefore I'm trying to indulge in a drink. It's more so, I am of a legal age to drink. I have a drink here in front of me that I would want to drink, so I am going to drink. And even more context, just to make that not sound as bad as it's sounding coming out, I cooked me a little meal. What did I make that day? I don't even remember what I cooked. It might have been some salmon, some rice, and some vegetables. And then I had me some wine. And what I noticed was, because I don't drink often, how I felt afterwards was like the understanding of why I don't drink often. I don't really like how I feel after I drink. Like, drinking, you get the benefits of how alcohol is supposed to make you feel while you're drinking it, but it's the after effect for me that I don't really like how it makes me feel. So therefore, I don't drink often. And I always forget, because I don't drink often, of how it makes me feel afterwards until after the fact. But because I'm a little older now, I've learned things that can help me through that process of what I feel like after I drink. So for myself, I know that I need to get hydrated, and not just I need some water. Water doesn't always cut it. I need something with some electrolytes or something that's geared towards actual rehydrating me. That's something I need. And then on top of that, I need actual food, something heavy to pretty much, it's probably still soaking up whatever is left in my system, but I need food to replenish me because I feel drained afterwards. And I was thinking about like a few Bible verses that kind of went with like the thought process of when I was thinking of these things. So there's a Bible verse that says, actually, let me go find it really quickly. Okay, now that I'm reading it, it's the context of it is talking about like things, like the intention behind things, which I was kind of just saying, like with how my intention behind drinking isn't to get drunk to take away my problems. And the Bible verse itself is 1 Corinthians 10. Where I was going with it was verse 23. It's really the whole thing, but I want to explain that how I kind of hear it. So it's when I was thinking about it before I like looked up the verse, it was in my thought process like everything. It seems like you have the right to do it, but is it beneficial? And then when I was actually reading the verse, it's saying the same thing, but it's pretty much saying like, don't take things that you feel are condemning to you and cause other people to stumble because of what God has told you to do in it. So like if you're a drinker and you are going through the process of trying to not make that something that's filling a void for you, don't condemn other people that drink just because they don't have a conviction for when they drink. And to even try to put it at a different perspective, I was looking at Facebook the other day, and there was a guy on there like genuinely like one of those cries of relief that he had completed a domestic violence class. And to me, it's just like when I looked at the picture of him, I can see the genuine like appreciation of being able to overcome that. And for myself, not like I'm not somebody that like has an issue with domestic violence. Like I don't think about just punching significant others. Like that's not something that's probably not funny, but that's not a thought process of mine. So when I saw it, it was just like, dang, like that he really is free. Like you can see the relief and the freedom in a picture. That's the even crazier part. It's just like he's delivered from suffering of a thought process of being that angry to have to put his hands on another person. And it's the same thing with people that drink. Like there are some people that really suffer through trying to overcome alcoholism. But then there are an alternate version of people who that's not a struggle for them. Like if they want to put the cup down, they could put the cup down because that's not something that they're compelled to have to pick up in every situation that could be challenging. Or even when it comes to the domestic violence, it's like on the alternative, that the first thought process of somebody isn't to go punch somebody because they're angry. But the whole thing is like not condemning others for a struggle that you have when you see that they're walking freely in the God-given freedom of their conscience. Like that's what this whole verse is pretty much saying. Like it says, for why is my freedom being judged by any by another's conscience. And people do that. I don't know if it's knowingly, but they do it quite often where they're judging people on convictions that they have for themselves. And they get upset that other people are more walking in the freedom of what they believe in because they are convicted and they see how these people are moving freely without any conviction, and they feel like, how are you able to do that? But God looks at the motives of the heart. So when he sees, that's just like a parent. Like I feel like I've said this before. There are certain things that parents see in their children where they'll allow their children a little more freedom than other children because they know the responsibility, what is the word I'm looking for? The mental maturity of some children over other children. It doesn't mean that they don't trust them or don't love them the same. It's just that God knows his children. He knows what their capacity for certain things are, and he knows how to help or assist his children in ways that they need to be able to stay under his righteousness. So if he knows a little wine is going to make you feel like the wine is helping you over him helping you, he's going to convict you and tell you, no, cut that off. You don't need the wine. You need me. And if he sees a person that doesn't have enough wine at their wedding, and he knows that it's going to get the wedding, spirit up a little bit, he going to turn some water into wine to keep the party going. Like, it's perspective. Like, that wasn't the miracle to get people drunk. What Bible verse really came to mind when I was thinking about all of this was how Jesus was at, it says Simon's house. My thing is, Simon was one of the disciples, but there's a lot of Simons. You know how we got like common names? Like, what's a common name? Ashley. Like, that's like saying Ashley. So I didn't read too deep to see if this was the Simon that, is one of his disciples. But in this verse, it calls him a Pharisee, and then it says his name is Simon. I'm assuming it's his disciple, but in this passage right here, it don't say that. So I didn't go too deep in trying to see if that's who he is. But Jesus is at his house, and this is Luke 7:36 through 50. And in this verse, it goes into details of who. So in this passage, it doesn't even say her name. Like, this story is told in multiple books. But in Luke, it just says a woman, and then it says where she's from, and then it tries to explain like the judgment that the town has on her from this passage. So she goes to Simon's house to meet Jesus, to cry at his feet. And as she's crying at his feet, she pours an alabaster jar of perfume on him. And the disciples there are just like, why would she pour something so expensive on your feet? And Jesus is explaining in this passage how two people have a certain amount of debt. And if the debt is forgiven, wouldn't the person who owed more feel more appreciative? And then he goes to explain how Jesus has been invited into Simon's home, and Simon hasn't given him as much honor as this lady who Simon judged as being a sinful woman in the town. He hasn't given Jesus as much honor as this woman who's supposedly so sinful has. And then Jesus like reaffirms her and tells her like her sins are forgiven. And the people around are still like passing judgment and just asking even Jesus, like, who is he to be for forgiving sins? Like, they didn't switch the judgment from this lady to Jesus. And Jesus is telling her, you know, it was your faith that did this. Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. But then it's explained in a different light, in a different passage or different verse. And let me read that one, or I might not read it, but I might explain it to y'all. Hold on one second. So what's crazy is in this verse, it's this, okay, so it's Matthew 25, actually it's Matthew 26, verse 6 through 13. And how this passage starts off, it's the same story. It's not as, I don't know if it's not as detailed, but it's not as long as the Luke version. But what stood out when I was reading this book of the stories version, it labels Simon differently. So in Luke, it called him a Pharisee. But in Matthew, it called him Simon the leper. And when I think of that, it made me think of leprosy. So I'm just like, did Simon have leprosy? So I looked it up, and the Google didn't say it like, yeah, he had that name because he had leprosy. It said it's unknown, but it's possible that he was healed of leprosy and he kept the name because he had it, and it's just something that they did back then, and it pretty much acknowledging like he was healed of it but had it. So Simon the leper, like Simon who used to have leprosy, basically. And it's just like in this passage, it points out Simon's old condition, and in the Luke passage, it points out what Jesus considers as, it didn't say her name in this one, but it says her name in John 12:3. So in John, it says her name, but in Matthew, it talks about Simon's condition or old condition. And then Luke, it talks about Simon's title and what Jesus considers as the lady's old condition. And then John, he's not even acknowledged. So it's just like perspective. But from the perspective of the Matthew version, it's like he doesn't even go into details of her like weeping at his feet. It just says that she poured an expensive perfume on him, and the disciples were just like, why waste the perfume? Like, we could have gave that money to the poor. Like, this version doesn't even go into details of her issue. It goes into the details of Simon's issue and the thought process of the disciples, like their heart posture in it. And Jesus is just like, you know, what she's done for me is beautiful, and she's honoring me before I'm about to go through a really hardship. And she's going to be remembered for this. And in this passage, it's just like he is put together this way to be just that. Like, it doesn't even go into details about what she had going on. It doesn't go into details about any of her issues. It just goes into details of her honoring Jesus and him feeling honored by what she did. So one text is like a unsolicited judgment on the person that was originally passing judgment, and Jesus like defending in a subtle way. The next text is kind of like going into details to kind of teach where the person isn't justified in their judgment, and reassuring one of God's children that, like, you're still my child, even though people are trying to judge you in this unjust way. And by faith at that. Like, the fact that faith was pointed out in it was just like, that's the whole point. And then in the last one, it was just like kind of explaining the same thing, but even though her name is mentioned in this one, the people that are witnessing this aren't even there for her story, or the fact that she is subtly being honored by Jesus for honoring him, but to point out that Jesus is going to be betrayed and that the Jews are trying to find a way to kill him, and that they're only there to see the miracle that he raised Lazarus from the dead. So it's like so many different motives and so many different ways Jesus is looking at these people's heart postures. Which made me think of John 2, verse 24 through 25. So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about how it seemed like the people that like are going through the most, that are being judged by others the most, but spiritually, like, those are the people that God is comforting the most in the way that he comforts. Like, there's a Bible verse that says, like, God is closer to the contrite in spirit, or something like that. Let me see if I can find it. So that's Psalms 34:18. And what I noticed is often in the whole experience of Jesus and his disciples, he kept having to point out faith to them. And he would ask them, like, why do you have such little faith? Why is your faith so low? And these are the people that were like supposed to be the closest to him, that seen the miracles, that like was up front and personal with him in his process and steps in the way that he did things, but they still couldn't accept certain things. And to Jesus, it was just like, you have a faith issue. But then you came all of these other people that were coming to him for healing from things that these people were literally passing judgment on them for. Jesus is just like, you're healed because of your faith. Like, I see your faith, therefore I'm going to do this for you because of your faith. And the disciples are sitting back like, whoa, why couldn't we do that? And Jesus is just like, your faith is not like their faith. Like, you thinking you honoring me by being around me, but these people honoring me because they're rushing towards me when they are feeling their lowest. Like, they feel like they have nobody else to turn to. You feel like you have me to turn to, but these people are going out of their way to make it or express how much they feel like I'm able to do what they're here requesting of me. And Jesus just kept pointing out, like, I'm not going to take that from them. So that's in a negative thought process of, like, Jesus healing ailments. But it's the same thing with people that believe for blessings. So I find myself often, or not even just me, I don't even want to put it personally. People look at Christians and feel like Christians should be distraught, going through hardships, feeling like they just pulling themselves up by the bootstraps. And it's just like, when you come across a Christian that is living in the abundance in the promises that God has literally spoken to us through this same word, people look at them in a judgmental stance and feel like they can't be following Christ, the same Christ that is close to the brokenhearted, because how are you so happy and joyful and living so freely and not being condemned for it? Like, that doesn't, it's an unfair box to put people in. Like, that's their faith. That's their walk with God. That's their reality of what and how God shows up for them. And it's like people are trying to knock that spirit or knock that light out of them because they feel like it's only real if you are constantly being humbled in the way that they feel humbling is humbled. Not knowing these people are receiving these blessings because they're more humbled in spirit, showing up to God and in authenticity and receiving the favor, the encouragement, the honor that Jesus honors in the way that he honors because of the way that you're honoring who you know he is. And I don't know what else to say to that, but I'm just going to say, if you don't feel convicted, don't let other people's convictions make you feel convicted. And if you feel convicted, that turn to God. He'll help you through it. In whatever personal way that he speaks to you to help you through things that you go through, because it really is relational. For instance, I ran into a guy who was out just enjoying life. And this man said that he was out on parole after robbing a bank. In my mind, it was just like, how are you free? And not even just this physically free, like, you still living like you don't have a care in the world. Like, how are you that mentally free on top of physically free after you just said you tried to rob a bank? Like, when I tell you, I was not judging this man for that at all. Like, I don't even know why he felt so comfortable telling me this, but it's just the simple fact that I'm not saying go rob no banks to see if you can get away with it, but I'm saying, like, the levels to feeling, I don't want to confuse anybody, but if they felt that he was okay enough to continue walking around without being put in jail, and he was going to live like he was relieved of whatever penalty people felt like he should have got for what he did. Like, if they felt like he was, there's an actual term for it. I just can't think of it because I don't be following the law like that. But like, if they felt he was capable of being free without running away, like they allowed him to do that. So for him to live like he was bound wouldn't make sense, because technically he's not bound in the way that being in jail would be. And he wasn't living like he was in jail because he was literally free. Like, pretty sure there was some type of restrictions in what he could and couldn't do, but he wasn't living like he was restricted. That might not have been the best example, but that's what grace literally is. And who am I to condemn that man for walking in the grace that he was walking in? Just because, to me, it's mind-blowing to be free after you tried to rob a bank. But that's all I got for y'all. I hope that came out the way that it was intended. And don't go be robbing. Don't go rob no banks just to see if you get away with it. That was not the point of this. But until next time.